Welcome back. I'm Mike Cal. This is the last of the 4-part series with healthcare attorney Paige Gade. Paige wraps up our interview about COVID-19 programs and how those might apply to healthcare facilities.
You mentioned the forgiveness, and we work with healthcare, but we also work with small business owners as well. And I think one of the things, the questions or the topics of conversations that come up is this forgiveness. And yet, from the outside, it seems fairly simple. We have to keep people employed. We have to spend 60% of those monies towards payroll. But I think the challenging part is understanding how to get through that forgiveness application. And could you talk a little bit about some of those challenges that you've seen?
Of course, the first challenge is that 60% of the proceeds were required to be applied to eligible payroll costs. And at first that was 75%, but Congress has been relatively responsive to concerns that they've heard from business owners throughout the country and ultimately reduced that threshold to 60%. And there's a second requirement that you maintain workforce, and that comes in two different ways. First, employers are required to maintain 100% of the employees on the payroll as they existed prior to the pandemic. And the second part of that is that employers were not permitted to reduce wages by more than 25%, with some exceptions to that rule. But as long as employers maintained their workforce, 100% of those loans will be eligible for forgiveness.
If one of these hospitals or rural facilities does move forward with a project and it only uses a portion of that money, what is the expectation with the balance?
Sure. So Department of Health and Human Services has said that they'll release additional guidance on this, but if there are still unused funds at the end of the pandemic, then those will be expected to be returned, and directions on how to return those funds will be forthcoming.
My one last question, I think, is where the fine line is for the types of construction that these facilities can do. I think we'd all probably agree that negative air rooms, isolation rooms probably are a direct result of COVID and or these types of infectious diseases. However, what some people have expressed interest in was maybe renovating and or changing patient access and flow through their facilities in the event that this continues and or we see another type of event like this, so that maybe we don't experience that sharp drop off of outpatient type procedures, or we can control that better. Can you speak to that a little bit, Paige?
I think that it's, as long as there's good justification for the fact that it was in response to be able to maintain normal operations as possible and to protect staff and to protect other patients while being able to care for patients with COVID-19 and other patients who are seeking routine medical treatment or any other medical ailments, really. I think that there would be an argument that that could be in response to COVID-19 and to be prepared for and to prevent. So definitely, I think it falls into the prevention category of making sure that it doesn't get transmitted. And if hospitals or other care facilities can take steps to prevent that, I would guess that it would fall into that category. Now, of course, it's always good to consult an attorney for very specific questions to make sure that those are in compliance. But I would say that if I had to guess, I think I would be comfortable with that.
Paige, if anybody that's watching this has the question, would like to get a hold of you, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
Well, that's a great question. And there's a few ways. You can go to our website at remboltlawfirm.com, REMBOLT lawfirm.com, and look me up under the attorney listing. You can give us a call at 402-475-5100, or my email is pgade@remboltlawfirm.com.